Everyone thought Ethan and Clara had the perfect relationship. They had been together for 7 years. 7 years of shared dreams, inside jokes, late-night talks, and promises whispered under blankets. Clara believed they were building a future brick by brick. Marriage, a home, a life. But she was wrong. The betrayal didn't come from a stranger. It came from the two people she trusted the most. Ethan didn't even have the courage to tell her the truth at first. Instead, he grew distant. His replies became short, his smiles felt forced, and his excuses, endless. "I'm just busy," he said. "Work is stressing me out," he said. "Don't overthink," he said. Clara tried not to. She wanted to believe him. Then one evening, her best friend Lily invited her for coffee. Lily had been Clara's closest friend since college. They shared secrets, heartbreaks, and dreams. Clara trusted her like family. That was her biggest mistake. They sat across from each other in the cafe. Lily wouldn't meet her eyes. Her hands trembled around the cup. "There's something you need to know," Lily said softly. Clara felt her chest tighten. Before she could ask, Ethan walked in. Together. Side by side. Hand in hand. The truth hit her like a blade. Ethan didn't waste time. "I didn't plan for this to happen," he said, cold and calm. "But I've moved on. Lily understands me in ways you never did." Clara couldn't breathe. Her best friend stayed silent. No apology, no shame. 7 years erased in one sentence. Ethan continued, "You're too simple, Clara. Too small-minded. I want more from life." That word, small, cut the deepest. Clara stood up without crying. Not yet. She refused to break in front of them. "I hope you get everything you deserve," she said quietly. And she walked away. That night, Clara cried until her chest ached. She replayed every memory, every sign she ignored. But something else burned beneath the pain. Resolve. Because what Ethan never knew, what no one knew, was that Clara had been hiding something far bigger than heartbreak. A secret worth $150 million. And the day he would discover it, would change everything. Clara disappeared from everyone's lives after that night. No dramatic goodbye, no long explanations. She deleted her social media, changed her number, and packed her things into 2 suitcases. To Ethan, it looked like she had fallen apart. In reality, she was finally free. She moved to a quiet coastal city where no one knew her name. There, she rented a small apartment overlooking the sea and focused on something she had hidden for years. Her mind. Clara wasn't simple, she was strategic. While Ethan chased promotions and appearances, Clara had been building something silently. During nights he thought she was just journaling, she was studying markets, analyzing data, and managing assets most people would never touch. Her late father had left her a modest tech investment portfolio. Not millions, not even close, but Clara had done something rare. She listened, she learned, she waited. She reinvested patiently, took calculated risks, and partnered anonymously with emerging innovators. She never told Ethan because he mocked ambition unless it came with status. To him, success had to be loud. Clara's was invisible. Within 3 years, that modest portfolio had exploded. A biotech startup she believed in went public. An AI logistics firm she backed early was acquired by a global giant. The numbers climbed quietly. 10 million, 30 million, 80 million. By the time Clara turned 32, her net worth crossed $150 million. Still, she lived simply. No luxury cars, no designer wardrobes. She preferred anonymity over applause. Her wealth wasn't about proving anything. Until fate intervened. Ethan, meanwhile, got exactly what he wanted. Public success, a flashy job title, and Lily, who loved being seen more than being understood. But appearances crack. The company Ethan worked for collapsed after a scandal. Investors fled, his reputation took a hit. Suddenly, doors stopped opening. Desperate, he attended a high-profile entrepreneurship summit, hoping to network his way back up. That's when he saw her. Clara. Standing on stage. Confident, composed, powerful. The screen behind her read, "Keynote speaker, Clara Hayes, founder-majority shareholder, Core Group. Ethan's heart dropped. This wasn't the Clara he left behind. This was a woman who commanded the room. And as applause thundered, one realization crushed him completely. The woman he called small had become untouchable. Ethan couldn't move. The applause echoed through the massive hall, but all he could hear was the pounding of his own heart. Clara stood under the lights, calm and confident, speaking with authority he had never imagined. This wasn't luck. This was power. She spoke about resilience, about quiet growth, about being underestimated and choosing patience over pride. Every word felt like it was aimed directly at him. Ethan's palms grew damp. Lily sat beside him, scrolling on her phone, barely paying attention. She hadn't noticed yet, she still lived in a world of surfaces. Then the screen flashed numbers. Core Group, valuation, $150 million. Ethan felt sick. He leaned closer to Lily. "That's Clara," he whispered. Lily glanced up, confused. Then her eyes widened. "No," she said quickly. "That can't be her." But it was. The same woman they abandoned. The same woman they mocked. Only now, she was untouchable. When the keynote ended, the audience rose in a standing ovation. Clara smiled politely, then stepped down as executives rushed to greet her. Ethan pushed through the crowd. He rehearsed a dozen apologies in his head. He would explain. He would say he made a mistake. He would tell her he always believed in her. When he finally reached her, she was speaking with investors. She glanced at him briefly. Just briefly. Her eyes held no anger, no sadness. Only distance. "Clara," he said, forcing a smile, "it's been a long time." She nodded. "Ethan." That was all. No warmth, no resentment. Lily stepped forward. "We didn't know," she said nervously. "If we had." Clara raised her hand. "That doesn't matter," she said calmly. "You made choices based on who you thought I was, not who I actually am." The words cut deeper than any insult. Ethan swallowed. "I was wrong," he said. "I see that now." Clara looked at him then. Truly looked at him. "No," she replied softly. "You didn't see me then. You only see me now because I stand higher than you." Silence fell between them. She turned to leave. Panic rushed through Ethan. "Clara, please. We had something real." She paused, not turning around. "Yes," she said, "and you traded it for convenience." Then she walked away. That night, Ethan stared at the city lights from his hotel room, replaying every moment he dismissed her dreams, every time he called her small. The truth settled heavily in his chest. He hadn't lost Clara because she changed. He lost her because he never deserved to grow with her. Clara never thought about Ethan again. Not because she was trying to prove strength, but because she no longer needed to. The past had lost its grip the moment she stopped seeking validation from people who couldn't see her worth. Weeks after the summit, headlines quietly followed her success. Core Group expanded into global markets. Partnerships formed, lives changed through the technologies she funded. Clara focused on building something meaningful, not loud. One afternoon, she received an email. Subject: "I was wrong." She didn't open it. Some apologies arrived too late to matter. Ethan, on the other hand, struggled. Lily grew resentful. She blamed him for missing opportunities, for not becoming more. The relationship that began in betrayal ended the same way, empty and unstable. One night, Lily left without a note. Ethan sat alone, scrolling through Clara's interviews. Every word she spoke carried clarity and self-respect. She never mentioned him, not once. That silence hurt more than rejection. Months later, Clara returned to her hometown for a charity initiative. She funded scholarships for young women who had big dreams but quiet voices. At the ceremony, a young girl asked her, "How did you win?" Clara smiled gently. "I didn't win," she said. "I chose myself." The audience applauded, but her words were meant for anyone who had ever been underestimated. As she walked out, she noticed Ethan standing across the street. Older, tired, smaller than she remembered. Their eyes met. This time, he didn't approach her. He simply nodded. And Clara nodded back. Not in forgiveness. not in regret, but in closure. She turned away and stepped into her car, the door closing softly behind her. As the city faded in the distance, Clara looked ahead, not at what she had gained, but at what she had become. The woman who was once abandoned had risen without revenge, without noise, without looking back. And that was her greatest success. Years passed quietly. Clara's name became known in boardrooms, not gossip columns. She avoided interviews that focused on wealth and chose conversations about impact instead. Her investments shifted toward education, healthcare, and mentorship programs for women who reminded her of her younger self, capable, unseen, and doubting their own power. Despite the numbers attached to her name, Clara lived with intention. Morning walks, handwritten notes, long pauses before decisions. Wealth gave her freedom, but discipline gave her peace. One evening, while reviewing applications for a scholarship fund, she noticed a familiar last name. Ethan Miller. She paused. It wasn't him, it was his younger sister. The application was honest: struggling finances, student loans, a dream of becoming a biomedical researcher. No mention of Clara, no connection made. Clara approved it without hesitation. Not out of nostalgia, out of principle. Across town, Ethan worked a modest job. Nothing glamorous, nothing impressive, but honest. He had learned the hard way that shortcuts collapse and betrayal echoes. Sometimes, he passed buildings with Clara's company logo on them. He never went inside, never reached out again. Some doors, once closed, are not meant to be reopened. He understood that now. One night, scrolling through the news, he saw a headline. Valancourt founder funds global initiative for quiet innovators. He smiled faintly. For the first time, there was no regret attached, only acceptance. Meanwhile, Clara stood on a balcony overlooking the ocean, the same place where she once rebuilt herself. A friend asked her if she ever wondered how different life might have been if Ethan had stayed. Clara thought for a moment. If he had stayed, she said, I would have stayed small to make him comfortable. The wind carried her words away. She wasn't angry anymore, she wasn't proud either. She was free. Because the real secret wasn't the $150 million. It was this. Clara didn't rise because she was betrayed. She rose because she stopped waiting to be chosen. And long after the money changed hands, long after the names faded from headlines, that truth remained priceless. Clara never planned to be remembered. That was the strange thing about her success. While others chased recognition, she focused on permanence. She believed real impact didn't need an audience, it needed consistency. Years later, Valancourt became more than a company. It became a platform, a place where quiet brilliance was protected, where ideas were valued over egos. Young founders spoke of Clara with respect, not fear. She listened more than she spoke. And when she did speak, people leaned in. One afternoon, during a closed-door meeting, a junior analyst nervously presented an idea everyone else had dismissed. Clara stopped the room. Let them finish, she said. The idea changed the company's direction. After the meeting, the analyst asked her, "Why did you trust me?" Clara smiled, "Because someone once ignored me." That was how she led. Not from bitterness, but memory. Ethan heard stories about her through others. How she funded hospitals without naming rights. How she turned down awards. How she walked away from deals that didn't align with her values, even when the numbers were tempting. He understood then. Clara didn't build her life to prove anyone wrong. She built it so she would never abandon herself again. On her 40th birthday, Clara returned to the cafe where everything had ended years ago. She sat alone, sipping coffee, watching people pass by. Lovers, friends, strangers at crossroads she could almost feel. She didn't relive the pain. She honored the distance. Because distance had saved her. Before leaving, she paid for the next 10 customers anonymously. A small gesture, a quiet kindness, the kind that didn't need credit. As she stepped outside, her phone buzzed. A message from one of her scholarship recipients. "I got accepted. I didn't think someone like me could do this. Thank you for seeing me." Clara closed her eyes. This was the return on her investment. Not money. Meaning. And somewhere, in lives she would never fully witness, her influence continued, unspoken, unseen, unstoppable. The girl who was once left behind had become the woman who left the world better than she found it. And that was the legacy no betrayal could ever take from her. Time softened everything. Not the memories, but their weight. Clara learned that healing wasn't about forgetting, it was about remembering without pain. Years after the betrayal, the faces no longer haunted her. They had become lessons, not wounds. One quiet morning, she stood before a group of young entrepreneurs at a small university. No cameras, no press, just students with notebooks and questions written in their eyes. A student raised her hand. "What was the hardest part of your journey?" Clara didn't answer immediately. "Being underestimated," she said. "Especially by people I loved." The room fell silent. "Not because they were cruel," she continued, "but because they measured me by their limits, not my potential." After the talk, the same student approached her. "What should I do if people don't believe in me?" Clara smiled softly. "Believe in yourself quietly. Let time do the explaining." That evening, Clara walked alone through the campus gardens. The air smelled of rain. For the first time in years, she felt complete, not successful, not powerful, just whole. Across town, Ethan watched his daughter practice piano. Life had taken unexpected turns. He wasn't rich, he wasn't famous, but he was present, and presence, he had learned, was priceless. Sometimes he wondered who he might have been if he had stayed loyal, if he had grown alongside Clara instead of chasing shortcuts. But regret no longer screamed. It whispered, and he listened. He taught his daughter one lesson above all else. "Never leave someone who believes in you," he said. Meanwhile, Clara boarded a late flight, destination unknown. She liked it that way. The future no longer frightened her. She trusted herself now. As the plane lifted into the clouds, she looked out the window, watching the city fade into light and shadow. The chapter that began with betrayal didn't end in revenge. It ended in wisdom. She had learned that not everyone is meant to walk with you forever. Some people arrive to teach you how strong you are when they leave. And when the world finally sees your worth, the victory isn't in being seen. It's in knowing you never needed them to see it at all. Some stories end with closure. Hers ended with freedom. Success has a strange sound. At first, it's loud, applause, numbers, congratulations. But eventually, it fades into something softer, something only you can hear. That was where Clara found herself. Not chasing growth, not escaping the past, just living inside the stillness she once feared. Her days became slower, morning light through open windows, books half read, conversations that didn't require proving anything. The world still knew her name, but she no longer needed it spoken. One afternoon, Clara visited a small startup incubator she funded anonymously. She sat in the back, unnoticed, listening to founders pitch ideas with trembling voices and hopeful eyes. She saw herself in them. Not the billionaire, the beginner. After the session, a young man approached her. "You asked the best questions," he said. "You didn't try to impress anyone." Clara smiled. "That's because I already impressed the only person who mattered." That night, she wrote in a notebook she'd kept since her lowest days. No financial plans, no goals, just thoughts. "I used to think happiness came after success," she wrote. "Now I know success comes after peace." Across the city, Ethan sat on his balcony, listening to distant traffic. His life was simple, predictable, and for the first time, that didn't feel like failure. He no longer compared himself to Clara. Comparison had been the thief of everything good he once had. Instead, he measured his days by smaller things. Honest work, quiet evenings, being present. He had learned something Clara never needed to teach him. Some losses are permanent. Some lessons are priceless. Weeks later, Clara received a letter. Handwritten, no return address. Inside was a single sentence. "I hope you're happy." She folded the paper carefully and placed it back in the envelope. She didn't need to reply. Happiness wasn't something to explain anymore. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Clara stepped onto her balcony, breathing in the evening air. The world felt wide, not demanding. She hadn't won a battle. She had survived a transformation. And in the quiet after everything she lost and everything she gained, Clara finally understood the truth few ever reach. The greatest success isn't being admired, it's being at peace with the life you chose. And that peace was worth more than $150 million. There are moments in life when nothing dramatic happens. No headlines, no confrontations, no victories to announce. And yet, those moments shape us the most. Clara learned this on an ordinary morning. She was walking through a park, watching parents chase laughing children, when she realized something had changed. Not around her, within her. She no longer carried the story of betrayal like a badge or a scar. It had simply become history. For years, people assumed her strength came from money, from success, from revenge disguised as achievement, but they were wrong. Her strength came from restraint. From choosing not to return harm with harm, from walking away without demanding closure, from letting people misunderstand her while she understood herself. Later that day, Clara spoke at a private retreat. No cameras, no applause, just a circle of people searching for direction. Someone asked, "What should we do when someone leaves us at our lowest?" Clara thought carefully. "Thank them," she said. "Not out loud, not directly, but privately, because they showed you who wouldn't walk the full distance with you." The room was silent. "Some people aren't meant to share your destination," she continued. "They're meant to reveal your direction." That evening, Clara returned home and opened an old box she rarely touched. Inside were photos, letters, and fragments of a life she once imagined. She didn't cry, she didn't smile. She closed the box gently. Across town, Ethan taught his daughter how to ride a bike. She fell, she cried, he helped her up. "Try again," he said softly. As she pedaled forward, unsteady but brave, Ethan felt something loosen in his chest. Regret no longer ruled him. Responsibility did. And that, he realized, was growth. Later, Clara stood by her window as night settled in. The city lights glimmered like possibilities she no longer needed to chase. She had learned the last lesson. Not everyone who leaves is wrong. Not everyone who stays is right. But the ones who walk away often clear the path for who you're meant to become. Clara turned off the lights and stepped into the quiet, no longer defined by loss or success. Only by clarity. And that clarity was the richest reward of all. Life has a way of starting over quietly. For Clara, it wasn't a grand announcement. There were no headlines, no celebrations, no reminders of what had once been lost. Just mornings that stretched longer, choices that felt lighter, and a world that suddenly seemed open rather than confined. She returned to her favorite coastal town, the place where she had rebuilt herself after betrayal. The same apartment, the same ocean view, but everything inside her had changed. Clara no longer measured herself against anyone else. The woman she had once been, vulnerable and underestimated, had grown into someone who moved through life with purpose, not permission. She smiled at strangers, helped young entrepreneurs anonymously, and spent hours walking along the shore, letting the waves wash away lingering shadows of the past. One afternoon, a small child approached her while she sat reading on the pier. "Are you famous?" the child asked innocently. Clara laughed softly. "No," she said, "I just tell stories." The child nodded, satisfied, and ran off to join friends. Clara watched her go and realized something remarkable. She had finally freed herself from the need to be seen. She had become invisible in a way that mattered, quietly shaping the world without waiting for acknowledgement. Meanwhile, Ethan had settled into a quieter life. He had learned to appreciate the simple victories, helping his family, building honest work, guiding his daughter, and in doing so, had grown in ways money and ambition never could have taught him. He sometimes caught glimpses of Clara's achievements online. There was no envy anymore, only recognition. She had truly become who she was meant to be. And Clara? She no longer cared if he or anyone else noticed. Because the final lesson she had learned, the one that no betrayal, no heartbreak, no fortune could teach, was this. Life doesn't owe you closure. It doesn't owe you apologies. It doesn't even owe you acknowledgement. What it does give is a choice. A choice to rise. A choice to build. A choice to become more than the sum of what others thought you were. Clara stepped onto the balcony at sunset, the sky blazing gold and pink over the horizon. For the first time in years, she felt the full weight of freedom. Not the freedom to be rich, not the freedom to be admired, but the freedom to be herself, fully, quietly, and unshakably. The storm was over. And the journey had only just begun.